Hi, and welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. This is D. LeBron. Today, I have a very special guest, Mr. Edward Gardner. Gardner, I'm sorry, sir.
Yes, Gardner. Edward.
Sorry, it is one of those days. I'm tongue tied and not working very well, but I do appreciate you coming on the show, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I've seen your signs, and I've seen that you've been active and wanting to serve. So go ahead and tell people about yourself. Some that may not know who you are. Can you tell them, about your personal self?
Sure. So I'm a husband. I'm a father. My wife and I have been together for 25 years. Married for 20. It took me 5 years to convince her, but we finally closed the deal. I have two beautiful daughters that are growing up here in Midlothian and going through the Midlothian schools. And I'm a business owner, veteran, and spent a long time in corporate America. It was one of those things that, we moved to Midlothian 18 years ago to kind of get away from the big city. And we've been here just loving it ever since.
It does it when you run for office. It's something that you're putting yourself out on a meat grinder, and you're really putting yourself out there. So you must love your community, and I tell that to every candidate. They must love their community to want to serve. And something that can be quite a blood sport. It could get pretty ugly sometimes. So why did you want to become why do you want to be on the city council?
Well, the main reason is because, as I said, I've lived here quite a while. We're going on 20 years in Midlothian, and I absolutely love this town. It's a place where when we first came here, we just knew we were home, and we've built our family here. And over the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years, things have really started to change, and they're changing in a direction that frankly worries me. And so I'm running for city council because I want to protect Midlothian and keep it as special as it's been for us, so that the next generation can also enjoy it.
Awesome. I definitely yeah, I feel the sentiment with wanting to change some things, because there is a lot of change going on here. Um, in order to deal with this change, you have to be willing to put in the time. I mean, if
Absolutely.
you're going to council meetings and you don't know what you're doing, or you haven't read your packet, or you're not giving the time that's required as a city council, you will not serve your people, of the people of Midlothian, effectively. So, what do you tell the people of Midlothian about you giving the time and effort for this position?
Well, I'm an extremely hard worker. I've spent my entire life building business, building my career, you know, walking into, well, let me back up and just tell you my background in the corporate world. I spent 16 years doing IT security as a consultant and up through management over consultants. And I walked into boardrooms all over the world, and I had to prepare myself for those meetings and to learn what the issues were, to dive in, to understand everything fully, and to be able to respond and build a plan in order to address those issues. And that's the same mentality, that same exact methodology that I'm bringing to council. I'm going to sit there and look at every one of these issues, and I'm going to dig in and find all the information. I'm going to talk to everyone, and I'm going to be able to build a plan in order to address it. And I'm going to work with my other councilmen in order to be able to affect change.
And that's definitely something that's going to be required. And a question I was going to go to you next: how important do you think it is for you to get along with other councilmen in order to complete the work of the city of Midlothian?
Oh, it's absolutely a necessity to be able to get along, and not just with your councilman, but with everyone you come across. I mean, if you're a confrontational person, if you're fighting, if you're abrasive, you can't ever build any type of support or help to make changes. I mean, nobody's going to work with you. So you have to be able to get along with people. Now, just because you get along with them doesn't mean you have to agree with their opinions.
Right.
So you can definitely disagree with someone respectfully and honorably, and still work through those difficult disagreements in order to come to a resolution and be able to move forward.
Yeah, it's definitely when you get up there, it's kind of a team sport.
Yeah,
You
yeah, absolutely.
it's a team sport. There has to be consensus for anything to happen. Um, and so, I mean, going into it, how do you deal with, because if you're elected to the city council, there's going to be some people who are going to be rah rah. Mr. Ed Gardner made it,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely. I
there's
hope
gonna
so.
be some people who are like, why, Lord, why? So how do you deal with, as a councilman, if you were elected, how do you deal with those that don't agree with your positions?
Well, for one thing, I want to learn why. I want to understand what it is that they don't agree with and why they don't agree with it. I want to understand their positions, because you know in life we don't know everything. Nobody walks into anything knowing it all. And if you think you do, you've already lost. So you've got to sit down and have those, Socratic discussions to be able to understand what it is that their problem is, and either be able to change their opinion on the topic, or change your own if you're wrong. Because there's going to be times where I am going to be wrong walking into something, and when people bring it to my attention, I'm going to sit down and figure out why and learn from it and move on. But
Right.
when I do know what I'm talking about, I'm going to learn their position, so I can understand where I can help them to get to the same place.
That sounds like old school politics right there, convincing, persuasion.
It's just
You know,
relations. It's just
it
trying
really
to
is.
deal with people in general. If we had more of that in society, we wouldn't have such anger and division right now. If people
Well,
took the time to get to know each other and to learn each other's positions.
people kind of just talk at each other. They're not listening to each other. They're just talking at each other, and then it doesn't help that people become caricatures. They become evil, racist, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever word comes up there, and so that takes away from the humanity. Um, One of the things that I like to do on the show is I like to ask fundamental questions. And the reason I ask fundamental questions is because it doesn't matter what I ask you coming up on the show if your fundamentals are a certain way. So, what is the role of government in the lives of the people?
That's a great question. I mean, when people look at government, there's two schools of thought, and that is that the government is there to serve us, and then there's the view that the government is there to rule us. And the truth is it's there to serve us. It's there to provide for us. We didn't build this country as a dictatorship. We built it as a representative government. And so, when I look at government, and especially with what I'm trying to do, I see it as being a servant to the people. And that's how government should behave.
Yeah, and that's a refreshing thing. Sometimes people forget it, or they think of it in a very different way, than it actually being a public service and serving the people.
Yeah.
That can happen. Um, so, what does the First Amendment mean to you?
Well, without it, we probably wouldn't have any other rights. It's the uh, as I say to a lot of people, that the two most important, in my mind, amendments are the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, because without the First Amendment, we cannot have discourse. We cannot discuss our problems. We're only allowed to talk about what we're allowed to talk about, and you can never affect any change or come to any resolution without it. And so, the First Amendment is absolutely essential to our freedom. which is why I'm sure it is the First Amendment, and second to that is the Second Amendment, which is, the right to keep and bear arms, which is what we use to ensure the First Amendment.
Yeah, in case the first one don't work out.
Fails. That's right.
In case the first one fails, yeah.
But those were, our founding fathers were genius. They were absolutely brilliant. To think about putting these rules in place 200 and almost 250 years ago that are so absolutely accurate for even today's environment, and are so essential for protecting our liberties. It was an amazing thing that they did.
Yeah, it was, and they read through lots of different documents and looked through all history and came up with their own form of government. So it's a great and beautiful experiment that is this country.
Yeah.
So
they saw firsthand what happens when you're not allowed to have freedom of speech.
And one of the reasons I bring that up is because there is a lot of discord going on, and there's a lot of vitriol, and it gets ugly. So you're going to be sitting there in a council meeting, and you might get yelled at, you're going to get talked to, things are going to be said, and how you view, when you're sitting on that seat, how you view the First Amendment or their right to speak to you as a government official that all plays into each other, and that's kind of why I go there.
It's my right to listen to them. They have every right to speak. Transparency in government is something that I hold absolutely fundamental in my views, and that is that if we don't have the ability to speak and to see what's going, to speak to our government officials and see what's going on, we need to change them out, because that is a huge problem for our society. If we're going to have people that don't listen, that have, make all their decisions behind closed doors, that don't listen to the people.
Yeah.
As I said, we're servants to the people, and therefore we need to listen to our bosses.
Definitely. Well, yeah, and I was going to ask you about transparency, so I'm glad you answered it. Transparency is huge. It's needed. People need to know who to go to for these questions, and what's going on in their government in their name, and that's very important. So, Midlothian's growing. I don't know if you noticed, but it's getting it's getting pretty big.
A bit. Yeah.
There's been some people showing up, and it's growing. So I know in Waxahachie, when I spoke with the mayor over there and we did our interview, he said there were 1,200 housing starts up from 700 the year before. I don't know the exact number here. I'm still trying to get with the city manager. Hopefully I could get him on, but I definitely things are growing, and I know Midlothian's not too far behind that. So with growth, a lot of people talk about roads and infrastructure. Roads is part of infrastructure, but just in general infrastructure and how it's been done. What is your opinion, and what is a solution, maybe one solution that you have for some of the things that you've seen?
Well, infrastructure is not just roads. It's also the supporting businesses. It's the school system. It's everything that we rely on in order to go about our daily lives. And if we're growing and we're shoving more houses onto to smaller and smaller properties faster and faster, and we're not addressing the infrastructure and keeping it in balance, we're going to end up in a very uncomfortable place to live. And it happens a lot where you see extreme density of housing without the supporting businesses, and definitely without the schools, where you have huge overcrowding. And that's a school board issue, but I also believe that it's important for the city council to work with the school board in order to be able to plan and to ensure that infrastructure is met and in place. roads, we've got to work with TxDOT. We've got to be able to, we can't just go to a state highway that we don't control the flow on and just keep jamming more housing developments on it, because it's not safe. It's one of those things where we've got to be able to build out the infrastructure in a way that's going to support the community, and not just build for the sake of building.
Yeah, and there is definitely some issues. Like one of them that you can plainly see happening is all the houses that are being built right there in Walnut Grove, and it's a 2-lane road.
It is.
Yeah, you could see bad things happening there. It's
Yes, you
just
can.
coming. So, you know, it with this property growth, assessments have been growing. And one of the things that you always hear online, one of the things that you hear online are that people are being taxed out of their home. And that's
It's
a
a real
rough thing.
problem.
That is very un-American. So,
Let me just address that one right now.
okay.
Since I've lived in my home for as long as I have, my taxes are actually more than my mortgage. And,
Wow.
my mortgage hasn't changed since we moved into the house, but the
Yeah.
taxes, the valuation has gone up to the point where now we pay more in taxes than we do for our mortgage.
Yeah, that's
And that's,
insane.
that's a problem. That is, I mean, yeah, so I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
it is an absolute problem that needs to be addressed.
You're sitting there and you're doing budgets are getting ready to start, and you'll probably land somewhere in the middle of that, right in the they're already kind of starting. The city's probably coming up with proposals and going to present it to the city at some point. We're getting close.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were elected, you'd get in there somewhere in the middle of that, and it's coming at you, and you're going to be looking at the budget and taxes in general. What are your view on the city taxes, and if you were a party of one, what would you do with those taxes?
If I was a party of one, is that I would cut what I consider to be unnecessary spending. I would look for, more conservative ways to address problems, and I would take that money and turn it back to the people. I mean, there is nothing wrong with doing a rollback and giving money back to the people. It seems to be this horrible concept in government that, oh my gosh, we can't possibly roll back taxes and give money back to the people. If we have too much on our budget, we've got to spend it. We've got to find a way to go, to eat that up. Otherwise, we won't have it next year. But that's not the way we should be dealing with it. I mean, if we can find savings, if we can find ways of doing it more efficiently and cheaper, and still providing the services and the infrastructure that's required, and we can do it at a cost savings, give that money back to the people. Don't take it from them. We don't need it. If we can live without it, right? Definitely don't go looking for ways to spend it. I go back to the schools, and there's one thing that kind of bothers me with my children, is that I see some technology expenditures that were done in the classroom. These large touchscreen TVs that were very expensive, that are a great concept, but they're put in a classroom with a teacher that doesn't have money for paper and pens. The actual writing instruments that the kids need to do the classroom, the
Yeah.
parents are having to donate to the school because the money was spent elsewhere. They didn't provide for those key essential items. And if we're doing that across the city, there's ways to, and without a doubt, it's happening. There's ways to find those and to fix those, and everybody still gets the same great services. They get the same wonderful parks. Everything's great, but we do it at a budget that we can live with. We don't
Yeah.
take out debt.
There's been a lot of obviously nationally inflation is hitting us big time. So
Absolutely.
there are expenses that are hitting. So you're gonna get on that budget in the middle of it and start discussing with fellow city councils if you're elected about this budget, and how you look at how the money is spent is really important. And is there, like, in general, is there something that you would like to see cut in the budget, maybe that has bothered you?
There's not there's not one thing I'd point to right this second, but there are some things that I think we could do better. There was 14th Street. We went in and we built that out. Past the park there, going out to McAlpin from downtown, and it built this really nice, beautiful 2-lane road. And then in less than 2 years, we're tearing up concrete in order to build the additional lanes. Well, every bit of that concrete that we tore out was a waste. That was money that was wasted and lost. Had we planned on it a little bit better, we could have done it in one shot, because that road would have lasted 50 years, being a solid concrete, wonderful road.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't need to tear it back up. And it's things like that I think we can fix, that, just a little bit better planning, a little bit better grip on what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it. So
yeah, and when it comes into planning out, is how we place those developments. P and Z, P and Z is going to present a lot of things to you. If you're elected, they're going to present to you all kinds of plans, all these different builders, and how we lay those out. Are you gonna, or do you? And I don't know how, do you pledge to look at those things more closely before you vote on them?
Oh God, absolutely. Every single one of them. I won't vote on something that I don't understand. If I mean, this is an issue that's not just on city council. This is countrywide. We have a lot of people that go and vote, that walk in and they don't even know what's on the ballot when they're walking in the door. And
I'm trying to change that.
Yeah, I know you are, and that's a really good thing. I tell people all the time, whether you're voting for me or voting for somebody else, just get involved and show up and vote. Learn what the issues are. Understand what it is you're going to be voting on, because every one of those votes is precious and it's important. And whether it's a vote on city council or a vote for the presidency, it doesn't matter, as long as you understand what it is you're voting for. So yes, I pledge 110%, not that that's a real number, but I pledge 100% to absolutely understand what it is that I'm going to be voting on. I mean,
that's no, it's a good thing, because things are moving so fast. We don't have too much of an issue with crime, although we do, some things here and there.
It's coming.
It's coming. We're growing. It's going to come. Property crimes, probably the things that hit most. And Waxahachie's getting hit harder with it, but it's coming. So, one of the big discussions during the summer of COVID and stuff was, about defunding the police. Can the police expect your 100% support, Mr. Gardner?
Absolutely. In fact, on all my everything I hand out, supporting law enforcement is one of my absolute primary objectives, because fire is absolutely necessity. They're there to provide a really wonderful service, both in their EMT services and their fire services. But police, without the police, we don't have laws. We don't have the ability to have safety and security. Without good law enforcement, I don't feel safe sending my kids to school. I don't feel safe letting my wife go to work. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Mr. Gardner, you're a businessman, and we were having that discussion, and you're a businessman. You're a small business owner. What are some of the things that you'd like to see the city do to attract more business or be more business friendly?
Well, there's two sides to being business friendly. There's the business friendly of going out and bringing in large corporations, and then there's business friendly in supporting the small local homegrown business, that's locally owned and built. And my opinion is we're doing a pretty good job of going out and recruiting those big companies, but I don't know that we're doing a lot to encourage and grow our small business. And my favorite businesses are those unique individual businesses that were built here in this town by people that live here and love it here. And not only is it something that's different than you'll find anywhere else, but the people that build those businesses hire people that are from, that are family, basically, because they live here. This is important to them. On top of that, when there's profits that come out of those businesses, they're spent here. It's all part of this community. Big corporations, the profits, they go wherever the corporation goes. That's they can leave the town very easily. There's benefits to both, but when it comes to business, what I want to see is I want to see more unique restaurants and shops and things like that that are here for the people of Midlothian, and that were built specifically based on the needs of this community.
Yeah, and we talked about you being a sailor, and then the other day you were at the Thai place, and
Yeah,
Thai food. I love Thai food,
so
man. I
do I.
do. I love Thai food. It was. I actually had a guy who in Thailand and who used to make me a big bowl of rice with everything in it, and it was just
Mm,
always delicious. I remember. Sorry I went off like that, but
no, that's
um,
okay. I'm Westpac as well, so
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm coming to the end of this end of the show, but this is the best time right here because you get to speak directly to the people. You get to tell them why they should vote for you, and just tell them about you and your format. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the screen on you and be quiet.
okay. Well, I'll say this. I think that most of the issues that we covered on this were really good at showing the type of person I am. I mean, I have on my signs. Let's see, you can see it here. Well, it says proven conservative, and I'll say that because I am a lifelong conservative. I've always wanted to preserve freedom and security for the people. I believe that your property is your property. It doesn't belong to everyone else, and it shouldn't be taken. You know, it's really hard because everybody wants to walk this issue of not offending people, and I hope to not offend people. But at the same time, I'm gonna be honest and tell you who I am. So I am a Christian. I'm a conservative. I want to preserve Midlothian. I would love to have preserved Midlothian the way it was 15 years ago. It's a wonderful place to live. It is an absolute joy. And I see it growing in a way that is very similar to where I grew up as a child, which is Southern Oregon. In the 70s when I was there, it was this very similar to what we have here. But then the same thing that's happening now happened there. And that was it became extremely hip and trendy to move there from California. And we started getting this huge influx of people selling their homes in California and moving up to Oregon, flush with cash. And they were buying properties for twice what they were worth. And, we see the same things happening here. Houses going every day for, way over asking price. And what it does is it really hurts the community because it takes all the people that live here and that love this place and it prices them out of their own homes. It runs up property values to the point where businesses can no longer afford to start out or even continue their businesses in some situations. So my goal is to preserve Midlothian for my children that were born here so that they can go away to college and come back and raise their families here and feel safe and happy and love this place. I don't want to see it become where I came from, which is where I fled from to come to Texas 30 years ago. So, that's why I'm running, and that's who I am. And I hope you'll vote for me.
And yeah, I'm a refugee. You've been here a little bit longer than me, but I got a decade now in Texas, and um, I've seen what you're saying. I'm seeing a lot of it here. As a matter of fact, there was a post earlier, um, and somebody was talking about will people quit selling their they were jokingly tongue
Yeah,
in cheek, quit
I saw
selling,
that one. Please,
you know, yeah.
please stop selling it, or let us at least, bid
Yeah.
on it before it
Yeah,
goes.
it was tongue in cheek, but it was said it. And
But it's
I
true.
on
It
one of the
really is
comments
true.
I actually posted a listing from Compton, California. Okay. For a shack in Compton that was 4.99 or 6.99, excuse me. It was
Yeah,
6.99. Okay, if you could sell a shack in Compton for 6.99, you can do quite well here. So
absolutely.
that is kind of what's happening in investors, and there's a bunch of stuff, but
But
that's one of those.
I don't begrudge people the American dream in any way. But what I want to ensure is that the people of Midlothian still can remain here and still can live here and still afford it, so that they're not forced out of this place and run off. So,
Yep. Well, Mr. Gardner, I really appreciate you coming on. I love when the candidates are able to come on, um, and talk to the people. Um, I do this so that you guys can speak, so that people can see you guys and make their own judgment, and not make their judgment when they're in the ballot booth trying to, okay, this name sounds whimsical, let me go ahead and, oh, Gardner's great. I
hey, I
that is
like that. Can I use that?
yeah.
Gardner's great.
So you don't want to run our society, our beautiful society, that way. So that's
No,
why
we
I
don't.
do this show. But
I really
if you,
thank you for doing it.
thank you, brother. Well, I'm gonna let you go and let everybody get to their dinner and their life. Sir, thank you so much again for coming on. Can you stick around after this?
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
All right.